Good morning, everyone. My name is Julia Hinka, and I am the Nature Store Manager for the Friends of Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge. We are a 501c3 nonprofit celebrating our 25th year supporting Ohio's only National Wildlife Refuge complex with youth development, public use projects, and most recently, land acquisition. You can learn more about us. I'm going to put a link in the chat right now to direct you to our website. There you go. This link will put you in the right direction to become a member, make a tax-deductible donation to support our work, or even shop in the online nature store, which today Jessica's going to talk about window strikes, and we have a few products that you can purchase online and in store to help you at home with your own windows. So today I'm joined by Jessica Duez. She is the visitor services intern at Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge, and she has graciously joined us today to share her program about the bird-friendly facility challenge that she initiated at our building. She grew up in Iowa before moving to Northwest Ohio in 2009, where she attended Clay High School and was enrolled in the Agricultural and Environmental Technologies program, where as a senior, she volunteered with her class to pull invasive Phragmites out at Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge. That was her first time at Ottawa, and she immediately fell in love. She continued her education at the University of Toledo. She graduated there in 2007. And in 2021, she became our visitor services intern. If you've visited the refuge or called in, you've probably been greeted by Jessica. She's been doing a great job sharing her love of the refuge with the public. She not only is great with making your experience at Ottawa special, but she does a lot of things behind the scenes too. Most noticeably, when you come to Ottawa and see the new designs on her windows, she fronted the Bird Friendly Facility Challenge, and she's here to tell us all about that. So, Jessica, I will let you take it away.
Thank you, Julia. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us this morning, this Saturday morning. To begin, I'm just going to turn off my camera during the presentation, and then at the end, if you guys have any questions, I will turn it back on, but that'll allow me to just focus on the presentation. So I'll do that, and then I will share my screen here. Does that look good? Can you see that, Julia?
Yes, looks good.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so I am very excited to be here today to share with you all how we made our buildings here at Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge bird friendly. To start out, here's the agenda for the presentation today. I want to start out with explaining what the Bird Friendly Facility Challenge is and what the goals of the challenge really are. Then I'll go into the reasons why the challenge was created and why this project is so important to us at Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge. Then I want to continue on the main part of the presentation is really what we have been doing here at the refuge to make our buildings bird friendly. I'll go into just a brief explanation on how we funded the project, and then I'll wrap it up with a few more things that you can do that will benefit birds. So the Bird Friendly Facility Challenge was created by the United States Fish and Wildlife Service Migratory Bird Program. This program's main goal is to work with partners to protect, restore, and conserve bird populations and their habitats for future generations. They really lead the federal family in bird conservation issues. They identify and coordinate with state and nonprofit partners to respond to emerging conservation and hunting issues. And they build public understanding of migratory bird conservation. The Bird Friendly Facility Challenge has a straightforward goal of making our federal buildings more bird friendly, primarily in regards to addressing glass on our buildings. Lighting is also a factor to be addressed, but the main focus is on the glass. Another goal of the Bird Friendly Facility Challenge is to bring awareness and education to the public on the threats that birds face when it comes to glass, and to show ways to combat this threat at your own homes or businesses. Doing outreach opportunities, such as holding programs like this one, is really important as part of the challenge to be able to talk to you all about making buildings bird friendly, encourage you to consider doing these things to your own homes or buildings, and really using our building, our multiple buildings, as examples to help you visualize and gain inspiration to do to your own homes. And really the big picture goal is it's just one more step towards stabilizing bird populations in North America. This is a monumental task that the United States Fish and Wildlife Service is dedicated to and is striving for. This is just another step towards birds conservation, which really leads into why the Bird Friendly Facility Challenge was created in the first place. So the Bird Friendly Facility Challenge was created in response to a paper published in Science by Rosenberg et al. In 2019. This paper, titled Decline of the North American Avifauna, brought to attention and highlighted the decline of 3 billion breeding birds since 1970. So that's 1 in every 4 birds gone in just the last 50 years. This was a call to action to the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, which is one of the world's foremost migratory bird conservation leaders. This paper mentions that further research needs to be done to pinpoint the threats that each group of bird or each species of bird faces, both on their breeding and non-breeding grounds. But there are many threats that birds really face across the board, including habitat loss and degradation, outdoor cats, which is actually one of the leading causes of bird mortality, with almost 3 billion birds being killed each year by outdoor cats. Collisions, including window strikes. Birds are also colliding with power lines and windmills and other structures. Light pollution, pesticide use, invasive species, and climate change are all threats that birds are facing right now. But looking more closely at window strikes, it is estimated that each year, approximately 1 billion birds are colliding with glass in the United States, with nearly half happening at homes. So this may be a little bit of surprise to many of you. It was a surprise to me when I first read this. I would have thought that more strikes were happening in the big cities with the tall skyscrapers, which is obviously still an issue. But when you consider how many more homes there are compared to skyscrapers, it really starts to make a bit more sense. I really just wanted to highlight that this is happening everywhere, even in your neighborhood and possibly your home at some point or another. So why do birds hit glass? Birds just don't understand the concept of glass. Humans can use visual cues to identify when there is glass, usually. We look for frames and buildings and things that tell us that there's glass and that a scene and a reflection is just that and that it's not reality. But birds can't do that. They see reflections in the glass, such as plants, clouds, and sky, as open space to fly into. Corner windows are especially dangerous because they see not only the reflections, like the trees here, plants are reflected, the sky, but if you look through, you can also see through this other window, and there's more plants over here. This is actually our wildlife window, and so you'll see this photo multiple times throughout this presentation because I think it's a good visualization of how dangerous corner windows really are. Plants inside of windows or atriums are also dangerous because birds see the plants inside and think that it's habitat that they can fly into. A bird may also see their own reflection in the glass as a rival bird. This is common with northern cardinals and American robins, where they try to attack their own reflections in the glass or even a car side mirror, which can cause exhaustion and harm to the bird. Placing bird feeders too far from windows allows birds to gain more momentum when flying towards a window off of the bird feeder. So you see over here in the background, there's a bird feeder pretty far off, and a bird, most likely a dove or pigeon, has hit the window, leaving this imprint. These haunting imprints are created from the dust of powder down that these birds create. And it just shows how when a bird hits a window, they're hitting it head first, which causes head trauma, and about 55 to 75% of birds die when they hit a window. Even when they fly off and aren't killed on contact, 55 to 75% of them still do die. They often become stunned and become sitting ducks almost, and are more vulnerable to threats like predation. And light pollution. Light pollution is disorienting for migratory birds and can throw them off their migratory path. The lights draw birds in and can lead them towards cities where they are more vulnerable to threats like glass and predation. Light pollution also changes the behaviors of our resident birds. They start singing at odd times, or they have a hard time resting when the lights are too bright. So now that we've talked about why birds hit glass and why this challenge was created, I want to talk about why this project is so important to Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge and why we really wanted to make our buildings bird friendly. So Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge manages more than 10,000 acres of habitat to support migratory waterfowl, shorebirds, neotropical songbirds, and other plant and animal species. In 2000, the refuge was declared an important bird area by the American Bird Conservancy. In 2001, the Lake Erie marshes, including the Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge complex, were designated a regional shorebird reserve in the Western Hemisphere Shorebird Reserve Network. And in 2007, the refuge was declared an important bird area by Ohio Audubon. As most of you probably are familiar with, the biggest week in American birding takes place in early May here in Northwest Ohio. And Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge is just one of many locations that birders flock to witness spring migration and the warblers. Simply put, we love birds at this refuge. We wanted to set an example for our community and for other refuges on how to make their buildings bird friendly, and we wanted to contribute further to bird conservation. With this project, we want to educate our visitors about the threats that birds face and teach them solutions that they can implement with their own homes or businesses to help save birds. Some of you may be wondering if we had an issue with birds hitting our windows. Yes, we did. It isn't well documented, but several of our staff have witnessed the strikes. So it is an issue with our building, and we wanted to make sure that we are doing whatever we can to do to save birds. So now let's get into what Ottawa is doing to make our buildings bird friendly. Here's a list of the solutions that we have implemented at the refuge. I will go more into detail about each of these soon, but I really just want to stress that there are many options, both DIY or pre-made, that you can use. As long as you follow some of the basic guidelines that I'm going to share with you next, you can use nearly anything to make your buildings bird friendly. We used window film, window dots and tape. We made our own window decals and Zen curtains. We used Tempur Paint, and we are making sure to turn off our lights in our visitor center each evening. So before we go over each of these in more detail, I want to share with you the basic guidelines that we followed for the window markings that we used. So a little disclaimer before I go through these. These guidelines are always changing and evolving and improving as our understanding of window strikes and prevention methods improves. So a year ago when I started this, things have evolved since then even. So the first main guideline that I would suggest and that we implemented for everything we did was applying treatments on the outside of the window. This allows the treatment or the marking to be the most visible and effective at reducing bird strikes. When you apply something on the inside, it doesn't always actually obscure or create a visual barrier for the birds to see. You can actually even try this at your own home. Go outside, look at some of your windows at the reflections, especially at different times of the day. And you can see how strong your reflection changes throughout the day. And if you have something on the inside, you may not even see it at certain parts of the day. So just remember, whatever you use, apply it on the outside of the glass. The next thing is kind of obvious. Address the entire window. I saw a lot of people who had made Zen curtains, which is the string that hangs over windows, and they left quite a huge gap at the bottom. I would just make sure to, if you're hanging string or if you're putting tape, do the whole window. Don't leave any space at the bottom. Just really address the entire window. The 2x2 rule is really important. This is 2 inches by 2 inches vertically and horizontally when you're spacing dots, tape, string. If you're using paint, you don't want to leave any gaps larger than 2 inches vertically by 2 inches horizontally. This is because smaller birds like hummingbirds can fit through smaller spaces. So this 2-inch gap here between these two pieces of tape, a hummingbird would see this reflection here, this tree, and they wouldn't think that they could fit through this 2-inch space. Before, this used to actually be the 4x2 rule, where it was, I believe, 4 inches vertically by 2 inches horizontally. And like I said earlier, things are always changing and evolving. They now, like the American Bird Conservancy, recommends 2 inches by 2 inches to account for those smaller birds. 2-inch spacing actually has about an 88% bird strike reduction. When you drop down to 3 inches, it's only 75%. And then if you do 4-inch spacing, it's only 50% bird strike reduction. So you gain almost 40% bird strike reduction when you space 2 inches as compared to 4 inches. High contrast is also key. When you're putting on dots and tape and things, you want to make sure that you're using light color dots or tape on a dark window and vice versa to be most visible to birds. I recently went to a FLAP Canada program. FLAP stands for Fatal Light Awareness Program. They're a Canadian charity that is widely recognized as the preeminent authority on the bird building collision issue. And they actually suggested alternating between light and dark colored dots or tape to account for changes in the reflection as the daylight changes, which is something that wasn't really something that I didn't read when I first started researching this. So again, things are always changing. So as long as you remember to make it high contrast, like here is white tape, and this reflection is a pretty dark reflection of the trees. As long as it stands out, it'll be most effective and birds will be able to see it the most. And these last 2 points are about the width or the diameter of the markings you're going to use. So when you're using dots, you want to make sure that they are a 1/4 inch in diameter. And when you're using tape or even like paracord string for the Zen curtains, 1/8 of an inch diameter is the least that you should use. The tape on this window is actually 3/4 of an inch, which I think is better just because it's, you know, the larger the tape diameter, the more visible it'll be, the more it's blocking this reflection or breaking it up. But as long as you stick to this, it will be effective at reducing bird strikes. So now that we've gone over the kind of basic guidelines, I want to talk about what we did at the refuge. So one-way perforated film is a treatment that we used on a lot of our windows, and I think is kind of the most recognizable thing that we did to our buildings. It's perforated, which means it is covered in small holes. The inside is a solid black, and the outside is where the design gets printed, which allows you to see out, but you can't really see in from the outside. This film is almost complete, like it almost completely eliminates any reflections on the glass. This is the row 3 nature store windows. You can see reflections of the trees and clouds up here, and you can also see their lighting inside. Once we did the film, those reflections are almost completely gone. You can see the lighting a little bit on dark days, but it's really almost completely eliminated, which is really the goal of the film. So we went with the film on so many of our windows since it should last several years, and it was an opportunity for us to do custom designs. So we took to Facebook and we asked our visitors to submit their favorite photos taken at the refuge for consideration for the 2 large second-story windows, this one here and this one here. And that was a lot of fun to see everybody's photos. We have so many talented people who are doing photography out on the refuge, and it was really challenging to only pick 2 photos for those windows. For the other windows, we did collaborate with several other amazing photographers. Sam Woods did all but one warbler photo, which is what we have here, and these ones here are warblers. We also collaborated with Trevor Zook, who's an intern here and a longtime volunteer. He took the scarlet tanager photo and the rose-breasted grosbeak here. Vince, I'll probably mess up his last name, Capizzello. He took this golden wing warbler photo. Jared Lesnowitz took these photos here. I actually went to college with him at the University of Toledo. And then Tony Everhart, our volunteer photographer, took this muskrat and beaver photo. So I really want to thank everybody who helped us with this project and allowed us to use their amazing photos for it. To create the designs up here, I actually used an online graphic design program called Canva. It's really simple, it's a really nice program. I was able to remove the backgrounds and replace them with this bluish green background, and I left their perch for the water. In all honesty, I was having a really hard time with the muskrat and the beaver, so I left them the way they were, and I actually really like how those look too. So yes, I was very pleased with the results of these, and I was really happy to see them go up on the building. We used a local graphics company to print the designs on the film and install them on the outside of our windows, which required a bucket truck, which is another reason why we did film on so many of the windows, because getting a bucket truck is actually a lot of time and work. And so to have film that will last several years and that won't need to be messed with too often is the most effective and efficient, I think, way to treat our windows for, bird strikes. But if you have fewer windows, smaller windows for your home, you can also, you can always try and contact some local graphics companies, see if they would do those for you if you'd like, but you can also look online. Decorativefilms.com sells Solex film. It's basic designs, so they don't do custom designs. But if you're okay with that, you can always get film from them. And I was trying to find other ways that you could do this yourself. Signs.com, they will do custom designs where you submit your design or photo that you want printed on the film. You put the dimensions of your window in and they send you the film. I haven't tried either of these options, so I can't really vouch for either of them, but they're potential options that I found online that you could try. Home improvement stores do sell film, but I would be really careful with looking at film at home improvement stores because most of them are only to be applied on the inside of the window, which isn't going to be effective. And they actually sell this terrible mirrored film that actually is supposed to help block the light, the sun, and reduce your energy costs, but it is literally mirrored. So it is the opposite of what we're trying to do here. So just steer clear of that. Just be very careful when you're looking for film, making sure that you can apply it on the outside and making sure that it's going to get rid of reflections. And the cost for film really varies, all depending on how large your window is, how many, if you're going to install it yourself or not. So just keep that into consideration. Window dots and tape. There are a number of window dots and tape products out there, but we use these two brands, Feather Friendly for the dots and Kaleidoscape for the tape. For the dots, the diameter on these ones is 1/4 inch again, and they were applied on the outside. This is me and Alex Cherpis, our former biotech, who has now moved to another refuge in Washington State, applying the dots, and it actually is fairly simple. Feather Friendly sells the dots in single rolls that are 100 foot for $16.99, but they also sell this commercial rolls that are larger. I think they're about 3 foot, and like they're in a pretty large roll, and that made it a lot easier for us with how many windows we had. We applied dots to our wildlife window and the first floor windows of our visitor center. And then Kaleidoscape bird tape, they sell those in 40-foot rolls for $16.95. The tape we have put on our second floor windows just because it doesn't take 2 people to do the tape, and it's much easier when someone's up in a bucket truck to just put the tape on. So that's why those are on our second floor windows. And we also did them on our wildlife window. Window decals. So we actually made these ourselves. Another intern, Annalise, and I have been working on these. Julia was nice enough to let us use her Cricut machine, which you can see kind of up here. A Cricut machine, if you're not familiar with them, they're just cutting machines, really. They can be a little bit pricey. I was looking online. Some of them can be around $150 to $200. So if you don't, it would be beneficial if you knew someone who had one already, if you already had one, to making your own decals. And then all you have to do is buy adhesive vinyl. I found really colorful adhesive vinyl on Amazon for very cheap. And we just found designs again on Canva, printed them, cut them out, and applied them to the doors. We chose to apply decals to our doors for a couple reasons. It was another treatment that we could show people that they could use, but also when you are walking out of a door, it's kind of nice to be able to see on the other side a little bit, so you're not going to open the door on somebody. When you're using decals, I mean, you can also buy pre-made decals, but you have to be ready to buy a lot of them because you need to use them in high density. So you see here, they are packed on. We didn't leave space larger than the 2 inch by 2 inches. So a lot of times the packs, they only sell them in maybe 4 or 6. So you have to buy a lot of them unless you have a really small window. So just keep that in mind if you're going to buy decals and put them on your windows. You have to make sure that you have enough. Also, high contrast is something that you have to remember. We use these really colorful this really colorful vinyl so that it is high contrast, birds can see it. And again, they're applied on the outside. Then curtains are another thing that we made ourselves. that's pretty much just string hung over a window. We used paracord string and then vinyl J-channel to apply them to the window. It's a pretty inexpensive and easy treatment to make. I actually made a how-to guide, which is linked here, and I'm sure we can put that link in the chat. There's other information that you can take from that website as well. But you don't have to use paracord. You can use any kind of string, and you don't have to use vinyl J-channel. You can use anything to hang the string over the windows. Again, just follow the 2x2 rule, just hang them 2 inches apart. You can also buy pre-made Zen curtains from Acopian Bird Savers. My only hang up with that is they space theirs every 4 1/4 inches, which I personally think is too far apart. But I think something is better than nothing, and if you aren't really interested in making these yourself, you can always buy them. Tempur Paint. This is also another inexpensive and easy way to make your windows bird friendly. It's a fun craft to do with family, or with kids, or if you're an artist. You can paint any design you want, and it is washable and non-toxic. So you can, change the design as often as you want. It's easy to wash off, and it doesn't have any chemicals that are bad for the environment, from what I understand. With this though, you have to be, or a little disclaimer with this is that rain will wash this stuff off right away. We actually tried to paint the doors of our wildlife window. They have little glass panes in them, and within a few days the rain had washed them away because there's nothing protecting them. Our entrance glass does have a really nice overhang that is protecting the paint, and I was really thankful for all of the volunteers and the artists that came out to paint. This is our former intern, and now he's at Minnesota Valley. This is Ranger Logan. He is amazing, and he did this for us in May. So again, just apply the same rules here, the 2x2, and make sure it's high contrast. This is another fun and very inexpensive way to make your windows bird friendly. And we also had kids come out and do the windows of our Biopines Ranger Station. They loved it. It was a lot of fun. So if you have kids, this might be something you want to do with them. And the last thing we really wanted to address was reducing light pollution. We felt it was very important. So we are emphasizing to our staff that lights need to be turned off in the evening once everyone leaves. Several of our interior lights are motion sensors, but a few of them are manual. So just making sure that all of our lights get turned off each evening ensures that light will not trespass out of our windows outside. Not only does this help prevent birds from being attracted to our building, it also reduces energy usage and costs. Here are a few guidelines that you can follow to reduce light pollution on your property. So turning off exterior lights when possible, using motion sensors or timers, using downward or fully shielded light fixtures, kind of like this one, and which really directs light downwards and where it is needed, replacing blue lights like LEDs with warmer lighting, closing your curtains at night to keep light in, and really just talking to your neighbors and sharing this information with as many people as you know to really spread the word. Reducing light pollution is not only good for birds, but other wildlife, like sea turtles, and human health as well. So next I want to go into really briefly how this project was funded. As part of the Bird Friendly Facility Challenge, the Region 3 Migratory Bird Program created a 3 Billion Birds Lost contest To help promote and build momentum towards this effort, we were asked to submit a short proposal outlining our proposed actions, our timeline, budget, and rationale. A huge thank you to the Friends group, especially Tom Romito, for helping put this proposal together. We were one of 3 projects that received $7,000 to put towards the project, and additional funding came from the Friends and Refuge funds. So thank you to the Friends. The Friends are an amazing group. Everyone works so hard to support the Refuge, and we cannot thank them enough. The total cost so far for this project is around $11,500. About $10,000 of that came from the window film alone, and the remaining $1,500 has come from buying supplies for the Zen curtains, the paint brushes, the dots, and the tape was a big portion of that. So that is how much that cost us and how we're funding it. Now that I've talked about different solutions that we use and what you can use, I want to talk about which windows do you really address. We are addressing all of our windows at the Refuge, but that isn't always possible for everybody. So I would say addressing your higher risk windows is the most important. So what you want to look for are windows that you have heard birds hit, or windows that you have found dead birds under, or windows that you have had evidence of a strike, like feathers stuck to the glass, or like the imprints that you saw earlier. Most of the time, though, people aren't hearing birds hitting their windows. They're in another room, or they're not home. And predators, like outdoor cats, raccoons, possums, they often patrol the neighborhoods looking for dead birds under windows. And so before you can even get up in the morning, they've already come through and taken away those dead birds. So keep that in mind. You may not hear a bird hitting your window, or you may not see dead birds under your windows, but that doesn't mean birds aren't hitting them. Again, this is a photo of the wildlife window. It's a good example of a corner window. So if you have any of these, they're probably pretty important to address. Windows that reflect a lot of habitat, like, again, landscape, trees, the sky, those are important to address. Large windows reflect more habitat, but small windows are also important to address. They do still reflect habitat, like this small window on our Bob Hines reindeer station. Placing bird feeders in baths within 3 feet of a window is a good practice to lessen the impact of birds hitting a window. So if you have a bird feeder next to a window, you still want to, even if you place it within 3 feet, you still want to add some sort of treatment to help protect the window and prevent birds from wanting to fly into it still. And early, I would just go outside, take a look at your windows at different times of the day, and see which ones reflect a lot of landscape and the trees, the sky, the clouds, anywhere you have a bird feeder or where you know birds are hitting. Those are the important windows to address. And then lastly, I just want to go over other things that you can do that will benefit birds. Some things that we didn't use, but I know that you could use window paint markers instead of Tempur Paint. Soap. A lot of times you can use a bar of soap and you can actually streak your windows with the soap, especially if you have a territorial bird attacking your window, and it usually only happens during breeding season, nesting season. So soap is really temporary, something that you can use. Putting up screens, as long as you place the screen 2 to 3 inches away from the glass, it will help cushion the impact of a bird collision, and it should help reduce the reflection in the glass. And then creating a safe habitat. It's a great way to help birds. Planting natives helps provide shelter, food, and nesting sites for birds and other wildlife. If it is safe to do so, leave up dead trees and plants that are standing to provide shelter, roosting, and nesting sites and food sources for birds and other wildlife. Pesticides can be toxic to birds, and kill their food source and habitat sources that birds need. So avoid using pesticides in your yards and gardens, and try to eat organic foods to support farming without pesticides. If possible, keep cats indoors or make, catios, anything you can do to keep cats from going outside and killing birds, especially during peak bird activity and breeding season, primarily March to May for spring migration and August to October for fall migration. This is actually a photo of my cat, Penelope. Don't let her fool you. She is not in prison. She does not like the outdoors. I actually tried to walk her outside one time and she absolutely hated it. She was terrified. So I got lucky. My cat doesn't want to be outside at all. So keeping cats indoors is very important to reducing bird mortality. And with that, I think I've covered everything I want to talk about. So if you have any questions, I can try and answer them for you. Here's my contact information if you have any questions later on and you want to shoot me an email. Here is my information. So with that, thank you. I will turn on my video.
Jessica, I saw one question come through so far from Tom. Has the refuge staff noticed a reduction in bird strikes since the application of the treatments?
Well, we aren't finished with all of the applications. We actually still have to put tape up on our second story, the rest of our second story windows. And then we are finishing up the decals on the doors in the front. But since we've done a lot of this, I haven't been informed that there has been any bird strikes. So I would say yes.
I would have to agree. I know before you did this project, a few of us were in the visitor center, and we actually saw and heard barn swallow, because they nest under the eaves of the back awning, hit one of the upstairs windows, even though we had some of those decals on there before this, the pretty swan pictures there now. And it broke our hearts because we saw it on the roof behind the building. And I haven't heard anything hit the windows since we've had those big decals on there. So yes, Tom, I would say things are working the way they should. Does anyone else have, oh, we do have another question. Does time of year make a difference with windows?
Well, the height of breeding or migratory bird seasons in spring and fall is probably the most important time to address them, because birds are moving a lot more through the area. So March to May, August to October, especially the same goes for if you want to reduce your lighting, try and do it during those times. Those are the most important times to do it. That's when you're going to have an increase in bird strikes typically.
Jessica, I have another question for you.
Yep.
I had a conversation with Jason, refuge manager, earlier this year, and I believe he told me that we actually received more funds than from the Fish and Wildlife system than we had asked for, because nobody else, no other refuges that actually asked for any money. So I think he said we got more than $7,000. Can you confirm that?
I can't. I don't really know exactly how much we got. So I just knew originally we were supposed to get 7. I didn't know we got more.
Okay,
so,
thanks.
Exciting. Honestly, thank you, because you really put together the proposal. So
it was my pleasure.
Thank you.
If anyone has another question, feel free to take yourself off mute and go ahead and ask, or you can type it in the chat. While we're waiting, if there's any more questions, what I'm hoping to do with Jessica, because she made so many of those really cool, colorful designs on the visitor center, we're hoping to put together some packages of critters that we make, and you can just take home a pack of birds or a pack of frogs or insects, and sell them in the nature store. So you can take that cool design that she made and you know, use it at home. And I know we talked about it but during the pandemic, and we'll have to try to get something together this summer now that we can meet in person, with doing the Zen curtains, like a make and take home craft, you know, where we can show people how to make those or give you the materials and you can take it home. So hopefully we can do something like that too and help make some of those projects that you did for the refuge, you know, just share it with everybody so they can do that at home too.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. I really enjoyed making the Zen curtains here, and I also made them for my own house.
Mm-hmm.
They're really easy, and I would love to do like a little workshop.
Yeah, that would be really
where
fun.
people can come out and make them.
And in honor of all your hard work, any of the window decals we have in the nature store right now, we have a variety of these, which I think a lot of people use or familiar with. They usually come in and buy a couple of packs at a time and keep adding to it. We also have these really cool Charlie Harper designs. They're up on our website, and if you order online, you can get 20% off if you use code Jessica20. Same thing if you get them in person. We have the sale going in the nature store till the end of the month. So get those windows bird friendly. I don't see any more questions. So Jessica, thank you so much for sharing what you do with us, and explaining why we have the big bald eagle on the front of our building now. Hopefully more people that, you know, learn about window strikes and share it with other people. You know, we can just keep making buildings safer, and using what you did at the refuge at home.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. If you're interested, we have a few more really great programs coming up this summer. They're on our website as well. I can share that link again for you. But we hope you visit us in person or virtually. And thank you for supporting Ottawa. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye now.
Bye.